Without falling back on the easy answer of better training, what would you like to see done to prevent this going forward? And I'd like to start with Alexandria, please.
I'm just so happy. I love this. Okay, so everyone here knows that I practice criminal defense, and this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart because I see it every day. And I'm so glad that you said no training, because I hate when I go to forums and everyone says training. Let's be honest, we are all adults. You know right from wrong. No amount of training will get rid of stereotypes. No amount of training will get rid of bias. You can't out-train that. That is a mindset. There has to be accountability. And that's just the bottom line, accountability. And so for those of you who are not as learned in the law, I'll explain. So police have governmental immunity. And essentially what that means is that there is a narrow set of circumstances in which you can sue law enforcement. And essentially you have to prove gross negligence, which is conduct so reckless. And there are these exceptions that say if an officer is acting within the scope of their job, then they cannot be found to be liable for whatever harm may occur. And so when we see all of these cases in the news, that is how this is happening. To me, I don't have the perfect answer, but the best way to address it, unfortunately, is through lawsuits, loosening up that standard a little bit. It can't be too loose, obviously, because we don't want an overflow of lawsuits, but the reality is right now it's almost impossible to sue law enforcement because of that exception if they were acting in the scope of their employment.
Time.
Thank you.
All right, Alex.
Thank you. One of the unique things about me, I actually serve as one of the members of our risk management committee in the city of Taylor. So the risk management committee is the committee that's set up of myself, the city clerk, and also the HR director. So we see all the lawsuits that come forward to the city of Taylor. And some of them are, police-related matters. Some of them are general matters. Some of them are slip and fall. It varies from day to day. One of the things that's been a priority for myself as the first minority elected official in City of Taylor's history was looking to have our police department reflect our actual population. So looking at what we have in Taylor, one of the things before I was elected to the city council, we didn't have a minority officer on the force at all. Now we have several. One of the things that we've done over the last few years is making sure that we're implementing diversity improvement plans, making sure that we're actually having a force that reflects the folks that we have, and it's very diverse in Taylor. And we have to make sure that we do that. And I think that's a step in the right direction, but we also need to look at what we're doing to look at the lawsuits, because I'm coming from the lawsuit standpoint. We have to make sure that we're doing our best to evaluate each case by case and making sure that there are consequences in many of these things that we see. Time and time again, we see things kind of just brushed off and put under the rug, and we have to make sure that we're shining light on these items and making sure that they don't continue to happen in our communities.
Yeah.
So even though
1 minute.
Okay, you framed it, people of color, but there was a situation in Taylor, a young boy, Christina Soderman, her son Chris, graduated valedictorian, and sometimes it's overzealous police. And Chris, 18 years old, was on the spectrum. There's a situation, officer in Taylor was trying to pull him over, he pulled over, there was some misunderstanding, he kept going. Eventually, 2 cars come, one T-bones his car, they drag him out of the car, arrest him, and he was later charged with felony fleeing and eluding. And he was found guilty by bench trial. So we look at these situations, and it's not always people of color, but it's that accountability. And that officer today is still on the force. So that's the thing, it's accountability. They have a lot of power, but they need to be accountable and not ruining lives over misunderstanding.
Yeah,
So,
1 minute, please.
Yes, and I think that if my opponent actually got the details of that case, she'd understand exactly what happened with that. And unfortunately, there's many different circumstances that were involved in that case. Of course, the city of Taylor, police department, in what we've seen and through videos and everything else, and ultimately there was many bad decisions that were made in that case. And ultimately, the result was something that and I know many people did not like. But there were many dynamics to that case, and looking exactly what happened there, we have to make sure that we're separating this from actually the actual question, which is what are we doing to make sure that these aren't occurring again, and that's something that's totally separate from what we're talking about here.
All right, thank you. Moving on. As we all know, politics can get brutal even at the local level. Races for state representative are no exception. What do you feel is the worst attack that has been or could be leveled against you as a candidate, and how would you respond to it given the opportunity? Alex?
Worst attack? I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think this race has been quite clean compared to a lot of races I've seen. So I have not really, seen much out there. But the whole thing is this: the opportunity to say that the biggest thing that people can say about me is that I have my record. If they want to use that against me, over the last 5 years on City Council, I have a record that could be scrutinized. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that you will find from that record is that all my decisions have been community-oriented and making sure that I work for the community that I represent. So when we're looking at that record, you can scrutinize it, but at the end of the day, you'll notice that every single decision that I've made on City Council will continue on to be in the best interest of those who I represent.
All right, thank you. Alexandria?
So, the worst thing, what I've experienced is unfortunately, and I think this is sometimes happens to women, is that when you go to do something, they don't necessarily look to you, but they look to your spouse. And so the worst thing that's happened to me in this race are rumors about my husband. And for those of you who don't know, my husband got into some legal trouble in his younger years. And he went from being a high school dropout to a law school graduate. He just took the bar exam last week. However, it's funny because when everyone's campaigning, they're all for stories of redemption and overcoming. However, that was the first thing that I found, that I heard whispering and rumors of about him to be used against me. And I just think it's unfortunate. And I'm not saying my opponent had anything to do with it, because I'm sure as a first minority elected and as a Hispanic person, which my husband is Hispanic, he can appreciate that story of redemption and what he came through. But at the end of the day, we have our integrity, and I have my integrity. Politics is no career for me. I'm a lawyer, and I have to carry that with me. So the things that happen here affect my career, which essentially affects my children. And so at the end of the day, I think Michelle Obama said it best, when they go low, we go high.
All right, thank you. Until the ruling of the Supreme Court recently, gay marriage was illegal in Michigan as a result of a ballot initiative banning it outright. We have seen similar ballot measures used to discriminate against vulnerable populations in other ways as well. Do you personally feel that gay marriage should have been legalized, and in a broader sense, should civil rights be decided by the ballot box? Alexandria?
Again, like I said, I respect the decisions of the judiciary. I mean, we're talking about different branches of government. And so, I respect that, and I think that decision is in jeopardy now with the retirement of Justice Kennedy. However, on a broader level, I don't think civil rights should be decided by ballot initiatives. Those are decisions that are best left for the court and the judiciary, because the problem is that oftentimes we're dealing with a misinformed and uneducated electorate. And so when you leave it to ballot initiatives, I think it's to the detriment of the community as a whole.
Thank you. Alex?
Sure, absolutely, and I'm familiar with that. The whole thing, and I'm a proud supporter of same-sex marriage across this country, and I'm very satisfied with what happened through the Supreme Court and making it legal in all 50 states. But we look at, when we talk about this precedence, and we're looking at continuing with a Trump administration who is continuing to put justices on there that are far right, we have to take a backseat and take a look at what exactly we're having here. We have, some justices that are very extremely right-wing who are going to affect what happens here, including, the rights of everyone in this country. So we have to look at that and what biases that we see coming from the Supreme Court of the United States, because there are some that exist. And, we have to look and we have to make sure that we don't discount the electorate within the state or any state, because one of the greatest offenses we have is from the people who go to the ballot box to make sure that we write the things that are handed down to us by an unelected Supreme Court and many judges who are unelected. So we have to make sure that we are taking a look at this and making sure we don't discount those who go to the ballot box as the
Time.